Bleh.
Summer weather is continuing across the U.S. Some places it's hot, some places it's very hot, and some places are getting some thunderstorms, and some
Sorry,
people are playing extra audio.
sorry
Well,
about that.
that's quite all right. We'll get rid of the extra audio and talk about the weather part all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Back up the truck and get mulch, topsoil, and sand. Also get whatever you need to make sure you're protected in case there is a tropical storm or hurricane. And remember, come this winter, it's your go-to place to get salt. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. You just pair it to your Wi-Fi and the hub that comes with it, install it, put it up outside, and you're all set to go. The referral link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. If you do decide to make any purchase, be it this or any of the other weather gadgets and gizmos that they have, well, use the coupon code I want a weather station. And if you do, you get
10% off. Anything that you purchase from Tempest, it's 10% off.
well, almost anything. I think they got one or two things that you don't get the 10% on.
Well.
But you know, what can you do?
Yeah,
And,
what can you do?
right, and then
By the way, before we signed on,
yes.
I totally forgot to plug in my microphone, so it was working off of the camera mic,
Oh yeah,
which is
I thought it sounded a little odd.
and when we signed on or whatever like that on my YouTube link, see the microphone cuts off the volume or cuts off the sound from YouTube when I plug it in, so we don't have to worry about extraneous background noise or
Yes, exactly.
yes.
Mr. Warmfront did not make it through. Did not make it. It got stuck across central New Jersey today. So all the severe weather tonight is actually south of that, where we still have some severe thunderstorm watches up, but not to the areas to the north. Stayed in the 70s most of the day.
Yeah, and in fact, I saw an interesting discussion from Burlington, Vermont. I have some interest there because I'll be there over the weekend. Dennis Cassia, one of our folks on the chat board, is already up in Vermont. That's interesting, Joe. Today, according to the weather discussion, the northern third of Vermont was basking in bright sunshine and temperatures that were near or above 80. Meanwhile, central and southern Vermont were stuck underneath low clouds, fog, showers, and temperatures were held down into the 60s. So quite a difference between south and north today up in the Granite State in terms of temperatures.
I think if you speak to most Vermonters, right? Is that what they are, Vermonters?
I guess.
I think they'll probably uniformly say that this has been a pretty miserable summer up in
Oh,
northern New
God.
England.
Oh, God. I mean, July 11th and 12th, the worst flooding that they had there since the Great Flood of over 100 years or about 100 years earlier. I mean, it's been a horrible summer. And even, in fact, I read today that on the roads leading to the place where this big gathering of amateur astronomers is going to be this weekend, that they've been putting stones down on the road to try to keep the dust down, so to speak, and hope to flatten things out to make it a little bit more easier. But they said if you're coming up, make sure you don't go very fast on the roadways. And this is all due to all that rain that has fallen in July and on into this month of August.
I'd be curious I'm curious about how many days of measurable rain that they've had this summer. That would be an interesting number because it seems like, well, I mean, I know that's not going to be uniform everywhere, but where you can get the data from, like Burlington or Montpelier or a few other places, how many actually how many days where measurable rainfall. I bet it's quite a bit.
Well, maybe in a sarcastic way, whoever wrote the discussion in Burlington, Vermont yesterday said, "Well, for a change, we're actually seeing sunshine." So that I guess gives you an idea that sunny days have been few
You and
and
far between.
between. Yeah.
All right. Well, as we said, Mr. Warmfront had a really tough time. By the way, we're also going to get into the other thing. Just want to touch upon, Joe, is uh, it 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 doesn't appear as if while we might wind up with a hot day or at most two, it doesn't appear like it's going to be much more than that because this persistent troughing in the east, models were trying to get rid of it at least for a while. It appears that that is not going to be the case.
Well, a couple of things. As if I was looking at the long range models for next week, and I guess we'll get into this in a few minutes or whatever. But the GFS has a very, very sharp trough cutting across the northeastern United States on Tuesday of next week. And meantime, the European model says, "What trough?" It's more or less the whole country next week, at least on Tuesday, is being dominated by a huge upper level ridge in the middle part of the country. Now, eventually, the European does drop a short wave or a trough into the Great Lakes in the Northeast, but it doesn't come until like Thursday, and it's a lot flatter.
Right.
As the monstrous cutoff. No, they're not really a cutoff, but I mean a very sharp upper level system that the GFS is depicting again for early next week.
Well, that deep trough that the GFS had on that run yesterday was insane. For that would have been further down in the long range where you basically brought dew points in the 40s all the way down to the Gulf Coast. It seemed a bit excessive, but it's going to be interesting to see this. Again, it seems like the troughs are going to keep coming in the east, so I wouldn't be surprised if the GFS winds up being more correct with this. Actually, the models were kind of in the other. They sort of flipped because yesterday I think the European was the one that was driving the troughing into the east early next week, and the GFS was saying no, it would be not until very late next week. So now they've kind of reversed positions. Anyway, welcome to everybody on the chat board, and those of you who are not on the chat board but watching attentively in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. We are on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35, but we will not be on this Thursday, so no show, and don't send me messages. I've said it every day for the last 4 days. There's no show on Thursday, so inevitably on Thursday I'll get a message from somebody that'll say, "Is there a show tonight?" No. So anyhow, Monday through Thursdays at 7:35. And the person that usually sends me the message, is he on the chat board tonight? Yes, he is. Sorry.
I need to make a correction.
What?
And I thank you very much on the chat board, Charles Gall, who normally lurks in the background, but because I made a mistake, and it is a mistake, a big mistake, he said, with all due respect.
Oh, yeah. New Hampshire's the Granite State.
The Granite State is New Hampshire, and Vermont is the Green Mountain State, and I should know that, having gone to
Well,
Vermont.
Do they have granite in Vermont, or is it illegal? I don't know.
Well, believe it or not, there's I think I read or heard about some kind of a factory that creates blocks of granite or whatever, and they've been mining it. I don't know if there's such a thing as mining granite, but they've determined that the final block will be coming out sometime like in the year 2351 or something like that.
Wow.
And I guess I was thinking about that in the back of my head, thinking about granite. And you're right. New Hampshire's the granite state, and the Green Mountain State is Vermont. I'm going to be haunted tonight by Ethan Allen because of this.
Well, find out the date in 2351 when it's going to happen, and we could do the show live from there.
Sure thing.
I mean, I think we'll be wearing shrouds, but that's pretty much. Anyhow, here's our surface map tonight, and you can see that there's a stalled frontal boundary off the south shore of Long Island, cutting pretty much right across the state of New Jersey, cuts the state in half from north to south. To the north, it's been mostly light east winds, at least that's what's being reported at 5 o'clock, and temperatures in the low to mid 70s. And to the south of that, it's in the 80s. You get down further south, it was a lot hotter. It was down in the 90s, and of course, that's where the warm sector is set up. And this frontal boundary is taking forever. Right now, it's analyzed as being stationary all the way down on the east side of the Appalachians through central Georgia. Which, by the way, here, Joe, forecast to go into the upper 50s by morning. And the dew points are going to drop as well. And the forecast high tomorrow in Blairsville is only 79. So that's going to be I think a delightful day here in the Peachtree State.
Meanwhile, I'm going to be up here in the Hudson Valley, and we, for the next couple of days, tomorrow and on Thursday, are going to be sitting in dew points that are going to be in the mid to upper 60s, maybe even getting tomorrow close to 70. So in contrast to your lovely weather in the deep south, up here, where presumably, more often than not, it's supposed to be at this time of the year a bit drier and a bit less humid, we'll be the ones with the high levels of humidity to deal with tomorrow and Thursday. But it does look like we're going to get a big change and dry things out and really knock those dew points down for Friday and the upcoming weekend.
This frontal boundary, by the way, has made it all the way south into southern Louisiana and into South Texas. So for the first time in quite a while, there are no 100-degree readings covering virtually the whole state of Texas. Instead, now they're just kind of confined to South Texas and Southeast Texas. But Dallas is only, I think, on this map at 5 o'clock was only 97. But the dew point, Joe, was 49. So they got into some nice dry air. Dew points in the 40s and 50s. In West Texas, it's always almost all, the dew points are always low. In Northeast Texas, though, even here with the dew points with temperatures up around 90, some places in the 80s, didn't get out of the 80s, and dew points in the low to mid 50s. So some genuine dew point relief here from this high. That it's not much of a high. It's only a 1021 millibar high, but you know what? That's what you get this time of year, and it was just enough of a push to at least break. Some of these places have had consecutive days of 100 plus. I don't know what the numbers are, but they're a lot. So a lot of those streaks went by the boards today. Meanwhile, in the Southwest, it's just pretty much the same, but it's what it's supposed to be. Temperatures, say, between 102 to 107. But where it is very hot is up in the Pacific Northwest near the coast, where we've got temperatures approaching or even over 100 degrees. I don't know what the station is, but it's almost right on the coast of Oregon, Joe. It's got a 100 there. So,
they've had that a number of. Now, this is like the third or fourth summer in a row that you wouldn't expect these kind of temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, but they've had over the last several years these extreme temperatures, soaring 90s and even into the hundreds as we're seeing today. And I don't know, is that going to become a regularity now for them? It's weird.
Well, they do. They've always gotten into. They always get at least one stretch a year where it does get very hot near the coast. It's just that it's kind of happened now instead of, say, earlier in the summer. So it's not, to me. If they had a summer where it was like that from June to August, that I think would be significant. But what the pattern that would do that there would be a great pattern in the eastern part of the United States, because if somebody's going to be extremely hot in the west, it's going to be it's going to be correspondingly cool and dry in some places in the eastern half. So there is a good solid payoff. Look at all the lightning strikes tonight, Mr. Rayo, from southern New Jersey down through Virginia, North and South Carolina, southeast Georgia to the Florida Panhandle. Lots of showers and thunderstorms. Again, this is all south of that frontal boundary. And if you check out we've got the radar up. Here's the wide view. Well, I've got a little tight, so let me just go wide because Joe's going to show us some local radars. I think you should begin with the OKX, Joe, and then work your way south down the coast,
Yeah,
where the
okay.
thunderstorms are more numerous. So, are you ready to go?
I am going to be ready in about 10 seconds.
Okay. Well, let's get you up on the screen, and you should be all set to go. Hang on. Oh, why did I do that?
I don't know why.
I go. I got it. Okay, you're all good. So, knock
All right.
yourself out.
I'm going to knock myself out right now. Um, so we'll share. We'll start with OKX per Mr. Cioffi's request. And you can see that, well, everything is happening just to the south of New York City, although the last few frames of this loop shows that some of this shower activity may be giving a glancing blow to southern sections of Nassau County out on Long Island. But again, the lion's share of activity is south of New York and west of New York, across southern and again central New Jersey. There's some pretty good cells that are moving across from Trenton to just north of Belmar. But again, elsewhere to the north and to the east, across southern New England and up into the Hudson Valley, nothing really is happening. I mentioned in my Facebook forecast for the lower Hudson Valley a chance for a thunder shower or maybe a couple of showers up until about midnight, although nothing more really than just some spotty mist and drizzle at worst in my neck of the woods. Now let's continue south. Let's go to Fort Dix, Philadelphia, Wrightstown, New Jersey, and you can see that that area of showers and storms again proliferating over central and southern New Jersey, and pretty good cell that is working its way just to the north of Cape May. In fact, Cape May did get hit rather significantly with a second round of thunderstorm activity, also across central Delaware. Now moving out over the Atlantic Ocean. And if we go further south and west, let's go down to, around Baltimore and Washington. This is the Washington radar, Sterling, Virginia. And you could see that kind of like in the same way with New York. New York, there was really nothing happening from the city on north and west, but south and west, that's where all the precip was. Now in Washington, here's the nation's capital here, and most of the activity is taking place to the immediate east and to the south of Washington. Again, some pretty good cells moving across Delaware. Let's go down along the coastal plain. Let's go down to Morehead City, North Carolina.
Where, by the way, now you got Morehead City up. There are a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings northwest of the coast, and actually several flash flood warnings that are up out of this complex of storms that are in North Carolina. But go on.
And you could see. I mean, some of these are loaded for bear. Now, as we progress through the loop, the deep shades of red are beginning to fade out to a more orange or yellow-orange coloration, which is suggesting that the intensity of these things are diminishing, but still, they're probably carrying with them some significant spurts or periods of heavy rain. And this activity, again, progressing along quite well from west to east across the eastern part of North Carolina. Let's continue going south and west to Columbia, South Carolina. And you can see that there are some showers and storms mainly across central South Carolina and down into the area near the South Carolina-Georgia border. And in fact, speaking of Georgia, why don't we take a look at the area around Atlanta, which would include Mr. Cioffi's locale.
I'm all clear.
He's all clear, yeah. Here is Atlanta. Most of the activity now in Georgia is pushing south and east. And look at that. That's a pretty good, line of heavy-duty thunderstorms. The squall line down here, Joe. But again, that's pushing away from you and Atlanta and moving down into the coastal area of Georgia. And let's see, in Jacksonville.
I go to Tallahassee, but you got Jacksonville up. Go on.
Oh, we did. You see, south of Jacksonville, there's some activity going on. Also down toward Cape Canaveral. Again, nothing organized, but there are some pop-up cells, and wherever they pop up, they are producing some rather significant, rather hefty shower and thunderstorm and activity. I'll go to Tallahassee, and we'll take a look at Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
And you can see that there is activity that is dropping down through Alabama, Mobile, and into the Panhandle area. So they're seeing some showers and storms in the Panhandle as we speak. And some of that, look at that, the last few frames of the loop, this zone here, where the cursor is showing right now, take a look at all that organized area of orange and red. So if you're in this zone right here, you're probably seeing more than your fair share of showers and storms at this moment in time.
Okay.
Any place else?
No, I think you just took us right down the East Coast,
Yes.
faster than an airline might. So that's a good thing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, I've got the more regional view, and there are some big storms around New Orleans. You can see them also when you're in Mobile, and some strong cells on the Panhandle of Florida on the Alabama border. In the west and the southwest, we've got Mr. Monsoon working here with some downpours and thunderstorms. They don't seem to be moving very much. They're sort of inching their way northwestward. And there's little flash flood warning that went up in southwest Utah. There's another one that's gone up in east of San Diego. But you might get a few more flash flood warnings if this continues for the next couple of hours, as these things are just not moving. And also seeing some showers and storms up in the Sierra Nevadas, and not a whole lot going on. A couple of scattered storms in the interior of the state of Oregon. But other than that, it's fairly quiet there. It's quiet across the northern Rockies, the northern central and the southern plains, the Great Lakes, much of the Ohio Valley, not seeing any rain. We do have still what's left of two severe thunderstorm watches, one from central New Jersey down to southern Delaware, the other from southern Delaware, although that's been kind of shaved off, and it's still up for eastern North Carolina, and that the back edge of that is getting peeled away. So these watches are going to run their course, and then I suspect that there won't be much else to talk about. And they were in this area of marginal to slight risk. WSPC had the marginal risk up a little. I guess they thought maybe the warm front would have gotten just north of New York City, but it didn't. But the slight risk line, really, where they had it, was drawn perfectly for the idea of where the thunderstorms would begin, and that's pretty much how they set up on the radar tonight. The Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow has some thunderstorm possibilities in upstate New York, but other than that, you have to go down to southeast Virginia and then the eastern portions of North and South Carolina and Georgia, and of course Florida is in there for the whole state, where there could be some general thunderstorms, but none for me. Marginal to slight risk up in eastern Minnesota, northwest Wisconsin, and into the upper peninsula of Michigan. No, it's not. A tornado risk is less than 2%, so it's not elevated. And general thunderstorms in the southwestern parts of the West. And then for Thursday, we're looking at a marginal risk for much of the lower peninsula of Michigan and a teeny tiny portion of the upper peninsula. Other than that, the rest of the country is nice and quiet. Flash flood risks for those areas tonight that are getting storms. Of course, again, some of this is already done, but it's more marginal. The eastern North Carolina folks have a slight risk there, 15 to 40%. Tomorrow, it's a narrow band down the coast of North and South Carolina into southeast Georgia and Florida, and a marginal risk for Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, parts of Nevada, and in the Sierra Nevadas in California. And day 3, which is Thursday into Friday, it's most of the peninsula of Florida, and again, the same area in the southwest extending back into the Sierra Nevadas, into California. 7-day rainfall amounts, quite a bit for Central and South Florida, several to many inches there. And look how much rain is being forecast, Joe, for the Southwest. Now, some of this is probably WPC looking at a hurricane that's out in the Pacific, not Fernanda and not Greg, but I think the next one that's going to be a hurricane. And in fact, since we're talking about it, let's bring it up and see what they're doing. Okay, so they have not done anything yet, but there is an area here that they're highlighting with a 90% probability of this becoming a tropical depression or a tropical storm within the next 48 hours. And what's interesting about this, Joe, is the fact that this one, we mentioned this the other day about the model straddling a hurricane up the west coast. And this one is forecasted. There it is. I mean, this thing rapidly becomes a hurricane. So I'm just going to back this up. And it's not on the screen on the GFS until you start to see the isobars with it as we move into the weekend. And here we are for Saturday afternoon. It grazes the entire Baja Peninsula all the way up. And it's just to the east of it's just to the southeast of San Diego by a handful of miles here, Joe, next Monday. And the GFS still has a 985 pressure with a lot of isobars around it, and it has it going inland somewhere near Los Angeles. Very interesting.
Didn't we have a blizzard in Southern California, the first one they had in many, many years this past winter?
Yeah, we did. So why not have a hurricane? And in fact, the rain with this goes all the way up into Oregon and into Idaho as the moisture field spreads out northward. And by the way, if you look, there's a little system that the GFS makes that goes a little closed isobar there that goes into South Texas. So it's also doing things on the Atlantic side. But just want to show you what the upper air looks like here in the western U.S. and why it's doing that. Because apparently there is an upper low that is out here. And hold on, let me get this so you can see the time and date. So this was Monday. So this is today.
And the upper low more or less, seeing the hurricane, says, Come on up here. Let's have a party. Come on, you can't, yeah. And
well, the upper low the interesting thing is that upper low actually amplifies as we go through this week, and drops southward, and then starts to pull the I don't know what the next named storm is there. It's a G, but it pulls it. Basically, just kind of absorbs it. I guess we can call it that. But the upper low just pulls it right up, and if you follow the upper, just follow the upper flow here in the west, it's mostly northwest all the way up from Baja inside Mexico, going all the way up into California and into western Arizona. So this thing's got nowhere to go. I mean, if it somehow avoids the upper low, is where they like to turn to the left as they get further and further north. But if that upper low is there, the way this model is showing, that's going to go, that is going to go straight up. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly how much of it is left, because that water does get cold as you get up toward San Diego.
Now the next one on the list, this one potentially would be the H storm.
The H storm, yes. Right, and Greg is out. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the H storm.
So far we've had Adrian, Beatrice, Calvin, Dora, Eugene, Fernanda, Greg. Fernanda and Greg are active, and this potential storm that would be heading for San Diego, the H storm, Hillary.
Oh.
No comments, please.
The Europeans' upper air is very similar to the GFS until you get to about 96 hours. And then you see what, it almost gets to the same idea, though. There's a trough in the Pacific Northwest that drops down and just drops down into the northwest, into northern California, and you can see the upper low that reflects what will be Hillary, straddling the coastline all the way up. I want to see what the surface looks like, if it's as deep as the GFS has it. But here it is. It's got a, what is that? I can't see if it's an 84 or a 94 low. I want to say it. Okay, that's a 95. I can see that. Uh, but it still pretty much does the same idea, Joe. It takes it just southeast of San Diego and takes it very close to Los Angeles, but it just weakens it faster. Which, when you think about it with what goes on in the Pacific most of the time, it kind of makes sense. But if the upper low is like the GFS has, where the bottom part of that trough is stronger, it might do some, it might get some extra baroclinic energy in there to hold its own for a while longer. And they will see, they either way, they if this track verifies, they will see rain from this in Southern California.
It's interesting that it's mid-August. Well, now it's heading toward late August, but this time of the year, you really don't expect to see something like this. I mean, I'm thinking more in terms of baseball. The San Diego Padres, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Anaheim Angels. I mean, they rarely would experience any rain problems or even rain outs. And I don't have the schedules in front of me, but if any of them have any plans to play at their home stadiums this weekend, they may have a problem. Because again, it's not very often that you see wet weather predominate at this time of the year, but this is one of those rare events.
If it does verify, imagine what the media is going to do with this.
Oh, of course. Of course. And of course, they'll all, that somebody out there will say, well, it's all because of global warming, and away we go.
Well, they do. This does happen every once in a while, and we did have one last year that's doing something very similar to this. Meanwhile, going back to what Joe said with respect to the European model, you can see the big upper high that builds right over the Central Plains and the Middle Mississippi Valley. There's your 600 height high, Joe, that builds. And yeah, the European holds that ridge until maybe Thursday, when there's some kind of front that approaches and moves through. So it does have a couple of extra days in there. But the GFS is and again, early last couple of days, it was the European that was bringing the trough to the east, and the GFS was not. So now it's gone the other way. Here on the new run of the GFS, and you see the trough. It brings this. You know what the difference is, Joe, and this is going to be interesting because it impacts what goes on in the West. The European has that western trough, and it just drops it down. Okay.
Right.
The difference is that the GFS doesn't drop it down. It just moves it along and then winds up dropping it down into the northeast. That's the difference between the two models. So if the European is wrong on how it's handling the Pacific Northwest late this week, which will be part of the equation with the hurricane that's moving up the west coast, then that trough moves along like the GFS has it, and the GFS would squash that ridge after Monday and bring a cold front through here probably Monday night, and lower humidities for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and probably next Friday. And meanwhile, the other thing the GFS is doing, which the European is not doing, is one of these two tropical disturbances that's off the African coast. You see on the right, that's a hurricane there. This is early next week, and it drives it westward, right toward this deep trough that's right along the east coast, and it also picks up on something in the Gulf of Mexico from this sort of gyre that's going to be down there for next week. So I think the Atlantic side may wind up waking up. I don't know if it's going to look like this, because this is not, this is at the point in the long range where it's a one-run fantasy land, but nonetheless, one of these systems is going to go. I mean, one of these systems on the Atlantic side is going to develop. I just don't know if it's the way the GFS has it. The European's a little different when we look at the upper air in the Atlantic, because the other thing the European does in the east, if you notice, uh, on Monday there's a trough that's near Newfoundland and a weakness that goes down to Bermuda, and there's an upper low, and you see it there, that blue spot over the Bahamas. That takes it westward into the Gulf of Mexico, and you look at this and it would imply that maybe on the European anyway, that something might develop in the Gulf sometime for the middle part of next week. And on the far right, you see a closed low out there too. So the European has something out in the Atlantic. So let's not even think about what the specifics mean in the east with this stuff, because it's just so far out in the long range that we just really don't have a clue. But one of these, something's going to happen soon on the Atlantic side. But in the meantime, we do have something to watch on the Pacific side. Isn't that special?
And who was it just now? Oh, Chris O'Shaughnessy said it has been 23 years since the Dodgers have had a rainout. So, like I said, I don't know whether or not they're going to be playing this weekend at Dodger Stadium or Chavez Ravine or whatever they call it. But there may be, if not a rainout, there may be a rain delay, because this is something abnormal for the month of August.
Now, tomorrow should be okay. I mean, there are a few showers tomorrow afternoon in upstate New York and in northern New England, but up and down the East Coast, it's fairly quiet. A little bit of activity there in North Carolina and over Florida, and also in parts of Colorado and northern New Mexico. There is a strong cold front that's moving through Minnesota and into Wisconsin. Now, that's the risk area that SPC has, and you see how the GFS blows up some thunderstorms right through Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Now, on Thursday, this front and upper trough will approach. Now, I don't know how far south. The GFS sort of implies that the southern end of this is going to sort of get shaved off by the time we get to Friday when the front goes by. I guess I would probably throw in the chance that there could be a shower or storm Thursday night with this, and maybe a scattered shower or thunderstorm during the day Thursday with that, all that stuff that's offshore. There's just enough instability, I think, to pull it off. And then we should get this nice dry high to build in for Friday and Saturday with some decent dew point relief. Then the high goes off the Carolinas on Sunday. The winds go southwest and west. I would think Monday's going to be a hot day with a west wind. But again, is the GFS or the European going to be correct in the Pacific Northwest? Because that's going to make a big difference in what's going to be in the east. Because the GFS says the northwest trough doesn't drop southward, it moves eastward, and therefore it reaches the east with another strong cold front sometime Monday night. And maybe this would almost be maybe another severe weather case, especially for New England. Look at that. And then a nice cool high builds in for Tuesday and Wednesday. Actually even has a diver. Look at that. It's got a low that comes down from Iowa and moves south. You can't get them to do this in the wintertime, but they do it in the summertime. You get a low from Montana and North Dakota in August that's diving southeastward into South Carolina.
An Alberta Clipper or Saskatchewan Screamer?
Whatever it is.
Or a Manitoba Mauler?
No, actually, it's not. You know what it is? This is, you can see Hillary off the west coast, and some, a breakaway low of some sort forms up with that northern trough, part of whatever's in the north, and all of a sudden, suddenly there's a low that pops up in southern Montana, but it's part of what's coming up from the south, and then that low starts to move southeastward with its own little area of rain and thunderstorms for later next week. And of course, you see the hurricane that's offshore. You see the tropical storm that's over western Cuba, which crosses Florida and becomes a hurricane on the east side. So now you got two hurricanes there moving up the east coast. And on this one goes into North Carolina, eastern North Carolina. The other one passes southeast of Cape Cod and goes into Nova Scotia. So that's a big who knows that far down. Who knows?
Who knows, indeed.
And just to see.
Yesterday we were talking about maybe New York City would get a shot, and maybe its last shot of stringing together 3 days of 90-degree wet. But that's out now because with the trough diving across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast on Tuesday, that for the most part will just suppress all of the extreme heat to the south, to the west, and will keep the pattern relatively cool. I could see temperatures here in the New York area reaching like 85 to 90 Sunday, and maybe the same from Monday. But then
Monday might be the hotter day. I think with the west wind, maybe Monday will be until the front gets close enough. And Monday might be low to mid 90s.
and then it gets knocked flat by that front, and we drop back to around 80 or so, or low 80s on Tuesday, and the dew point's dropping as well. As far as this weekend, Joe, as I said, tomorrow and Thursday, a couple of still rather humid days in the mid and upper 60s in terms of dew point temperature, probably knocking back to around 50 or so, or low 50s on Friday, and then around 50 on Saturday, and then dew points will begin to climb, maybe upper 50s on Sunday. I think on Sunday we'll see kind of a swath of high cloud cover as the warmer air arrives first aloft, and then that'll lead into a much warmer, if not hotter, and certainly more humid day to kick off next week on Monday.
Dew points in the upper 30s, Joe, Tuesday afternoon in east central Pennsylvania.
I don't believe that.
Upper 30s. and 40 dew points everywhere Tuesday night and Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday. I mean, by Friday of next week, the dew points get into the 40s all the way down to the Gulf Coast. If the GFS is right with what's going on in the Pacific Northwest, because if it's not, then you're going to have to wait till the end. Then you're going to have your 3 or 4 days of 90 plus, and have to wait till maybe next Thursday before a cold front comes through.
I just keep looking, and you see the isobars of that system that's heading for San Diego along the Baja Peninsula coast. It's just like it's an eye opener.
Most definitely. I got to look up and see when the last time there was a hurricane in LA. I know it's been a long time. I want to say for some reason 1940 pops into my head. Something. I don't know. Anyway, you have Briller Jeopardy?
I believe I do.
Yeah, so let's do a little Briller Jeopardy.
We didn't have Briller Jeopardy last night because we had Rantorama. For those of you who were not here.
Yes, we talked too much last night.
But, okay, come on. Don't worry, it's coming. Yeah. And we were talking about the fact that Mother Briller's out of the hospital now?
Yes, she is. We did say that yesterday. She is out of the hospital, and her recovery continues, and we, of course, always wish her well. She's a fan of our show. She watches.
So on this Briller Jeopardy, Joe, and everybody, the average, now we've been doing high temperatures, average highs in August. Now let's switch to average low temperatures in August, and we do that for the 5 following cities. These are the average low temperatures in August. For city number 1, Las Vegas.
Oh, God, I have no idea. I'll say 79.
Joe, that was a pretty good guess.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The right. Michael McGuire hit it right on the nose here. Congratulations, Michael. 81 for the high temperature.
Okay.
For the low temperature, I should say. It could be a high temperature here in the east, but out there, it's the low. The average low in August in Las Vegas, 81 degrees. How about OKC, Joe? Oklahoma City.
Oh, God, I have no idea. I don't. I'll say, I have no clue. I'll say 69. I don't know.
You have no clue, but you got it right on the
You're
nose.
kidding me. I hit it on the nose? Look at
69 degrees.
I really had no clue. I should, I can't guess a lottery number, but I can get that. Okay.
Yep. Yep. All right, then. How about Philadelphia?
I'm gonna say 65.
Not a bad guess, but not the right guess.
I'm guessing I was probably just a hair too low.
However, we have a number of people on the chat board who got it right on the nose. Christopher Alley, Grubby, Helen Bertona, Mr. Fitzsimmons, I believe. I don't know why this thing is jumping around here. I'm having a tough time.
Carol DeCara, Maggie P.
Maggie P.
I figured out it was 68. Okay.
Yes. So there you are. We have two more? Yeah, we have two more. How about, well, we've been talking about it so much tonight. How about San Diego, Joe?
What did we say the average high was there? I think we said 80 for the month of August, 79 or 80. So I'll say 61.
It's a little bit on the low side.
Okay. I figured. Frank Riccio says 63. Helen Bertona says 64.
Still on the low side.
James Davis at 65. Anthony Sparacchio 65.
Right.
Yeah, the water temperature there's probably around 72 or 3. So yeah, that would be that number should have been higher. Patrick Darcy 65. Daniel Fitzsimmons 66. I'm sorry, he said 56. William Uber 64.
Chuck Cardillo, almost, Chuck.
If not 67, Chuck.
Shrubby also
Chuck
said
and Shrubby. If not 67,
so it must
Patrick
be
Darcy said 68.
68 degrees, which is the same as Philadelphia, believe it or not.
Right.
And the last one on the list, Joe, for tonight, Phoenix or Phoenix.
Oh, good God. I have no idea. I'll say 82.
Almost, but Michael McGuire hit it on the nose with 84.
84. Okay. By the way, if that hurricane does wind up going up the West Coast like that, we, of course, will cover it because the folks in California will, virtually the whole state will be watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m., although we're not on this Thursday.
Right. And I'm not going to be tomorrow. After tomorrow, I won't be back until Monday.
Oh, okay. So that means that Sunday could be an issue. I'll tell you what. So why don't we do this? I'm going to solo on Sunday, but we'll go Sunday night because a couple of people mentioned to me that more people watch on Sunday nights than Sunday mornings. So since I could get the morning free, and I have nothing planned for Sunday, so I'll do a Sunday night show, particularly if there's going to be a tropical system going up the West Coast. We're going to want to pay attention to that. So the Joe Weather Show tonight, as it is every night, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you do decide to make a purchase of anything there, weather station or any of the other gadgets, use the coupon code I want a weather station. Just remember, use the link at the top of the chat board on the descriptor to this video, and then just put the coupon code I want a weather station, and Joe Rayo will give you.
I'm going to give them. Well, somebody's going to give them 10% off.
Right. And Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. They have the best prices in town and everything you need to make your home look great and to make your home safe if we get a tropical storm or a hurricane. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Here's a new person I see on the chat board, by the way. A big shout out hello to Boss Trucker Mally. I don't think I've seen you before. Finally, California will get some much needed rain. LOL. Yes. Well, welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and welcome to the chat board. We have a lot of fun. Good to see. Always like to see new people jumping in on the conversation. So, back tomorrow night.
We will be here at 7:35 as per usual.
Okie dokie. See you tomorrow, folks. Have a great Tuesday night and a great Wednesday. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.